Hi, welcome back to another video lesson with Danny D here. We're going to be covering some new material this time. Last time out, we covered just basic things such as notes, some basic rhythms. We're going to be expanding on that today. So, here we go. All right. So, just for a review, this is what we learned last week. Remember, we learned treble and bass clef. So with treble and bass clef, we use certain mnemonic devices. Remember, every good boy does fine, and faces are spaces for the treble clef, and good burritos don't fall apart for the bass clef, and all cows eat grass. We said, not every good boy does fine. We said every good burrito deserves fries. That's what it was. All right. So these are just basic things. These are all the letters that you're going to face, but these are not all the notes. There are such things as half steps in music. The smallest increment that we learn is a half step, right? Hold on, I passed it here. Sorry, this is all kind of unorganized. So, all right, we've got sharps and flats, and these are half steps, right? So we learned G, and we've learned A, and I'm going to play those for you real quick. So, G is right here, and then A is right here. Now, that is what we call a full step increment, or two half steps. If we wanted to do a half step, there's something in between. And then this note right here, if you notice, that's the half step. This is G to A. You hear the difference? So this note right here, that half step note, has two names depending on the key of your song, which is something completely different that we will cover in a future video. But that is either going to be G sharp or A flat. A sharp raises a note by a half step, and a flat lowers the note by a half step. So you see here, we've got G, G sharp, A flat. So you might be wondering, aren't these the same note? And technically, no, but, or technically, yes, they sound exactly the same. They both sound like this. But theoretically, you would write them in different scenarios. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that they're two different notes, but they sound exactly the same, if that makes sense. So we've got G, G sharp, A flat, A sharp, and we went on here B flat, B, which is the same as, or B flat and B, which is the same. And then we've got B sharp here, which is the same as C flat. That's why I've put them in. That's why I've put them in parentheses here, because there are two increments in which notes are only a half step apart. For pretty much every instance, every letter is two half steps apart, except for two notes, and that is B to C is only one half step apart. Hear that interval? Here's the G to A flat half step. So listen to that interval, and then here I'll play B natural to C natural. Sounds the same, right? So in that instance, B sharp is going to be the same as C, and C flat is going to be the same as B. All right? And that goes the same with E to F, right? Just for time's sake, I didn't do the little parentheses thing here, but here's E to F. Here's the same interval. All right, so now that we've talked about the notes, let's talk about some rhythms here. So we talked about whole notes and half notes, right? A whole note equals 4 beats. Half note equals 2 beats. So 2 half notes would equal 1 whole note. 1 half note would equal 2 quarter notes, because a quarter note is just one beat each. So one thing we did not cover in the last episode was eighth notes. And an eighth note is a half of a quarter note. So where a quarter note gets one beat, an eighth note is going to get a half of a beat. So that's why normally when we count, we don't count 1, 2, 3, 4. We do something called subdividing, which is where you break up each one of those beats. So you would actually, if you wanted to count it in half beats, you would go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now you can go even further than that. And you have something here called 16th notes, right? And so a 16th note is worth 2 eighth notes. So that would be a quarter of a beat. So if you wanted to subdivide a beat into 4 parts to count 16th notes, you would count it like this normally. 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. When you get into subdivisions like that, I always say that the best policy is to use fruit, food, or any type of word as much as you can, right? So when it comes down to counting any like one beat, anything longer than a beat, I usually say pair, because you could just go pair, 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 pair. When it comes to counting eighth notes, you could do apple, 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 apple. When it comes to counting 16th notes, you can use watermelon, 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 and each syllable is going to be a subdivision of that beat. Hold on here, let me bring up the template that I wanted. All right, and then we also talked about the dot a little bit last time out. Here, let me show you guys the dot. All right, here's another breakdown I have for you here. So we talked last time about the dotted half note, which we said that the dot adds half of the value of the note. So a dotted half note, just for review, is going to be 3 beats. But what if we added a dot to a quarter note? Right here, I've got a little chart that kind of breaks it down for you, right? So if we have put a dot onto a quarter note, we're adding half of the value to the quarter note. So we're adding another half of a beat there. So rather than 1 beat, your dotted quarter note is going to be 1.5 beats, or equivalent to 3 eighth notes. If you dotted an eighth note, it would be a quarter of a beat, because the eighth note is a half beat. And so you're adding a 16th note onto that eighth note to give another quarter of a beat. So it's going to be 0.75 or 3/4 of a beat. Now, you could even put a dot onto another dotted note, and that would add half of the value that the dot gave you, right? So I broke this down a little bit here. If we double dotted a quarter note, it would be 1 3/4 beats, right? So it would be equivalent to a quarter note plus an eighth note plus a 16th note. And I've kind of broken that down for you here. So you've got a quarter note, and then the dot adds half of that value. The first dot adds half of that value, so it adds a half of a beat. Now the second dot adds half of that half, so it adds a quarter of a beat. So you end up with 1 3/4 beats. Now I have put in some examples here. Where are those examples? Boom, yeah, here we go. I put in some good examples. I have 2 exercises that we're going to kind of, I'm gonna play on the piano just on B, because that's where I've written it on. I didn't put the treble clefs, but this is gonna be in treble clef. Here, so let me get a metronome out, and we're just going to put it on 60 beats per minute, which is what the second hand on the clock moves at. All right, so here's our beat, 2, 3, 4. So if we were subdividing this into eighth notes, it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And if you subdivided it into 16th notes, it would be 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So here's going to be example number 1. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and a 4. All right. So I'm going to play that again, and this time, if you see here, I've kind of written out those fruit names: pear, apple, watermelon, pear. I'm going to do it again, this time utilizing the words, and you might be able to see how, if you're just starting out with subdividing, that this is going to be much the better option. All right, 1, 2, here we go. 1, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 4, pear, apple, watermelon, pear. All right, there we go. Now, if we look on to the next example here, I've added some dotted rhythms here. So I kind of strayed away from specifically just fruit because I couldn't find any fruit where when you naturally say the word, one syllable has more emphasis than the other. I did, however, think of pizza, because usually when you say pizza, you don't just say pizza and it's equal, and you don't say pizza where the second syllable has more emphasis. You usually say pizza, and so it kind of gives more emphasis here. So we've got a dotted eighth, 16th note rhythm. So the dotted eighth, again, gets 0.75 or 3/4 of a beat, and the 16th note gets only 1/4 of a beat. So rather than just a straight 1 and 2 and 3, and it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. This is mostly recognized. I always say the best recognized example of this rhythm right here is in the Star Spangled Banner. Oh, say da da da, 1, 2. All right, so let's play this other rhythm here. This time I'm going to go straight for the catchphrases. I also put "what up" in there because when you say "what up" to someone, you don't usually spend too much time saying the first syllable. You just kind of go "what up," and you put all the emphasis on the second syllable of the word. And that's kind of what this is. It's the opposite of this, where we've got we had a dotted quarter, or we had a dotted eighth, 16th. Now we've got a 16th dotted eighth. So it's 1E. So it'll be 1E. So let's do it. 1, 2, and ready and go. Pizza, apple, pear, pear, what up? 2, 3, 4. I kind of messed up that next one, pineapple, but the rest of that measure, we've got beat 1 right here. Now we've got beats 2. And then this is on the and, or the halfway point of beat 3. See, because we've got a dotted quarter note here, so that's 1.5 beats. So this is going to take up 2 and 3, and then this is and 4. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. If you have any questions on any rhythms that you'd like me to clarify, definitely feel free to leave a comment on that. So I'm just going through this here. I'm pretty sure we've covered everything that I wanted to get done in this video. Yeah, all right, yeah, definitely make sure to like and subscribe to this video. I know I sound kind of awkward when I'm talking here. I'm not used to being on camera, just recording myself talk like this, but hopefully you learned something. And I'm just gonna keep expanding on this series each video. So we're just gonna keep going in depth of the music reading, and I'll do a little bit of review at the beginning of each one. All right, so thank you. Have a great day.